Okay, hi everyone. So today the video is all about SuccessFactors time tracking and some of the configurability or the options on the timesheet in terms of what you're allowed to enter on the timesheet, how you enter it, and also some of the approvals and things like that. And so to really demonstrate this, I've set up two types of employees. And so the first one is Oliver Perez, right? And so what Oliver does is he has a negative time recording. So we're assuming he's working his work schedule unless we're told otherwise or unless we override this and you enter something in for it. And so that's what we're assuming. You still have to actually go in and confirm this and submit it. But once it's submitted, Oliver requires approval. So I have this little org chart here. His manager, Ethan, after it's submitted, has to approve this. And then Oliver's time is entered in duration. So 8 hours, 8.5 hours, whatever it may be, he enters the duration. And so I'll show this in the system as well, but we have time information for employees as well, where we enter on the employee level the profile that governs what happens when they enter time. And then the second scenario that I'm also going to demo is an employee, Matteo Salazar. And so I essentially made him the stark opposite. And so he must enter time in order to get paid. So each day he has to enter in time, but he also enters it in actual time. So 8 a.m., 8:30, 8:15, whatever time he enters and leaves. And then he does not have an approval. And so I know a question I often get is, okay, well, what about when a specific scenario happens? So yes, you do also have flexibility. When certain scenarios happen, you can trigger warnings or have extra approvals or things like that as well. So this will just show the configurability of the module as well. So let me jump over to the system, and I'm actually going to navigate to the home page first. And so what I will do is I'm going to show Oliver first. And so I'm going to go to Oliver Perez's profile. And the first thing I'm going to show you is in the job data information. Within job information, this is what I had in my screenshot. Right? Sorry, I didn't mean to click that. I meant to click View All. And so when I click this, there's a section here for time information. And so like I said before, this governs Oliver's timesheet behavior. And so there's including the holiday calendar that he has. So on the timesheet, we know which days are holidays. The work schedule that he normally works. Is he working a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or what's his work schedule? And then you have a couple profiles here that govern like the negative time recording and things like that. And then we also have the permissibility. So this is where you can control what you're allowed to do, right? Like not being able to enter time 3 months prior. So no one's going in and doing anything from that standpoint. And so that's kind of what that looks like. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the people profile. So I'm not logged in as Oliver. I'm actually an admin on this thing that has a higher level of access. And so I also am able to go to Oliver's timesheet. And now I'm going to show you these things. So I mentioned that Oliver has negative time recording, or we assume he works. So if I go to the timesheet for last week, you can see the recorded time is all over here, right? And so we assume that he works. And then if you come over here, you can kind of see on the right side the working times. This is based upon the work schedule that he has. And so now if you need to override that, then you can come in here, you can click absences and say, well, actually on December 5th, I was on vacation, and submit that. Right. And so then that would kind of change things. And, you see here now it moved from working time to absences because he was on vacation this day. And so I also mentioned that his time requires approval. So when I press submit, I can see this right here. And you can notice the status here, to be approved. And this is very, very important for payroll, because until this time is approved, you will not get paid. It will not integrate over to payroll, especially if you're using Employee Central Payroll, and these hours will not be paid. And you can't audit it in PCC or anything. So must be approved for that. And so the last thing I'll point out is you'll notice that the hours are duration. You see the specific word, duration. So that's how Oliver enters his time. And so just to kind of complete this process, I'm going to now switch and proxy as Oliver's manager, Ethan. So Ethan Walker. This is Oliver's manager. I had the little picture in my presentation. And so the way this works is right now it's to be approved. And then you can see it, December 1st to December 7th. I have a video specifically on this. If I want to click into this and see more details about this, I can see it, right? And I'm able to take a look at this, and then I can come in here, and you'll see that there's only one approver here. And I can go ahead and write a comment if I want and approve this. Okay. And so that kind of covers that workflow. Oliver's time was already there. We have to override if we want anything else. And then this actually requires approval. And now what I will do to kind of come full circle is I'm going to go back to Oliver's timesheet. And I'm going to look at the previous week. It's what I was actually looking at. And now you can see the status is approved. And it is now at this point that this would go over to payroll and be approved. Okay, so getting back over here, we kind of just covered what we demoed here. I showed his job information and how that controls these things. I showed the workflow and how it is required to be approved by his manager, Ethan. I showed negative time recording, and I showed the duration. Now I'm going to show something drastically different. And keep in mind, these are coexisting in the same system. So you can't have, different classifications of employees that behave differently. So you have a very granular control over that. And so I'm going to show Matteo now. And with Matteo, it's positive time recording. So in order to get paid, he must enter his time. And then with Matteo, he doesn't have the time approval like I mentioned earlier. And then it's actually entered in time over here. So let's go into the system. And so what I'm going to do now is go directly to Matteo's timesheet. I'll quickly show you the job data and the job information here. Specifically, if I go to time information, then I see, the calendar is shared, so that's fine. Work schedule is actually slightly different, but then the profile, the time recording profile is different, and then the admissibility is actually the same. So you can kind of see you can share some attributes if it's relevant, whereas otherwise, the profile is going to be different. And we'll see that when we go to the timesheet. So now I'm going to open up the timesheet for Matteo. And I will go to a previous week. And you'll notice, taking a look at this, recorded time is 0 here, right? And so I can click into a day, but I have to actually action this. So I can do, if I just work my normal schedule, okay, I can come in here and say, hey, I worked my planned work time. And then it incorporates the working time as well as the break that are on my work schedule. And I see all that information here from 10 a.m. to 10:15. But if you look at it and I expand this, right, this is actually going to have a clock. So I'm entering it in the times that I am working in, and it includes the break. So if I work extra, then I can put this in here and add another entry and say, hey, I actually had to come back in at 7:00 p.m. and I came and worked for 2 hours and did that. And once I save that, then you can see the immediate results of that. So the time is evaluated right away, and based upon me working 10 hours on this day, I got an extra 2 hours of overtime. And because I came in at a later time, I get a 1 hour of a late night premium, right? And so that shows what this looks like over here. And then I'll just quickly apply the planned working times to the rest of the week. So I will do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and last but not least, Friday. And then I can submit this time. And what you'll notice here is there is no workflow tied to this. And, like I said, I did this specifically just to showcase the configurability. Whereas the previous use case I showed with Oliver, he had to get his time approved. And so now this one doesn't. So yes, like I mentioned earlier, very, very configurable. I'll come back to my original starting point. You can have negative, you can have positive, you can have some employees that follow each. You can require approval for certain scenarios or certain employees types, right? That might make sense. And you can have durations or clock times. And like I said, this can coexist in the same system. So a lot of configurability, and you can really set this up a number of different ways. All right, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, add any comments if you have anything, and I'll see you next time.